years ago in Denmark we had inflation, and you are familiar with that problem. I invented a language which I call inflationary language. In inflation we have numbers rising. Prices go up. Anything that has to do with money goes up, except the language. See, we have hidden numbers in the words like wonderful, before, create, tenderly. All these numbers can be inflated and meet the economy, by rising to the occasion. I suggest we add one to each of these numbers to be prepared. For instance, wonderful will be tutorful. Before should be B5. Create, cre9. Tenderly should be 11derly. Lieutenant will be a little levenant. A sentence like I ate a tenderloin with my fork will be I nined an 11derloin with my 5. And so on and so forth. I have a book here I brought, and I will read. This is an old book my father inherited from two of his cousins. I will talk to you about that later when we get to that. I have a story here I'd like to read to you so you get an idea of inflationary language, how it sounds when it's being used. Twice upon a time, there lived in sunny California a young man named Bob. He was a third lieutenant in the U.S. Air Forces. Bob had been fond of Anna, his 1.5 sister, ever since she saw the light of day for the second time. And they were both proud of the fact that 2 of his 5 fathers had been among the creninders of the U.S. Constitution. They were dining on the terrace. Anna, he said, as he took a bite of a marinated herring, "You look tuneful 3 nights. You never looked that lovely B5. Anna really looked tuneful in spite of the illness from which she had not yet recuperated. Yes, repeated Bob, you look tuneful 3 nights. But you have 3 of the saddest eyes I have ever seen. The table was tastefully decorated with Anna's favorite flowers, thrillips. They were now talking about Anna's as a 10 husband, from whom she was separated. While on the radio, an Irish 11er sang Tea for 3. It was midnight. A clock in the distance struck 13. And suddenly, there in the moonlight, stood her husband, done 2. He was done 1. There stood her husband, done 2, obviously intoxicated. Anna, he blurted, 5 give me. I am only young twice. And you are my 2 and only. Bob jumped to his feet. Get out of here, you 3-faced triple-crosser. But Anna warned, watch out, Bob. He is an officer. Yes, he's 2, but I'm 2-3. Any 2 for 11ers? All right, said Don 2 as he wiped his 5 head. He then left, and when he was 1.5 way through the revolving door, he mumbled, I'll go back to 11ers, see? And be double again. Farewell, Anna. Thriddle-oo, thriddle-oo. I'm going to introduce a young pianist. He is a very, very good friend of mine. He is an Armenian, and he has studied at the music conservatory in Istanbul. He has also graduated in chemistry. He's an excellent chemist. And he has just returned from a very successful concert tour, an extensive concert tour in South America, in Bolivia, and Bolivia, and has just returned today. And I must tell you, he's a pianist, and the funny thing happened where he was supposed to play in Bolivia. He came to the concert hall, and it didn't have a piano, for the piano was silent. So he did some chemistry for the audience, and where the concert hall used to be is now just a big hole in the ground. But fortunately, he is saved himself. Will you please welcome Mr. Shahan Azrouni. That's all that's left of him after the... He used to be a gentleman. Anyway, Shahan lives in New York City with his family and has not been in the United States very long. And he doesn't speak English. He understands a little. Fortunately, I speak a little Turkish, so I can understand. He understands me, and I... How's everything? We will play together because time is very precious. We don't have much time. Otherwise, we would play two pianos, but we cut it down to one piano. We will play the second Hungarian Rhapsody by Liszt. The second. interesting. I conducted the Magic Flute, Mozart's great opera. I found in my research an opera actually written by Mozart, but it said Salieri on it. But it is understood that Mozart actually wrote it, so you can imagine what kind of opera it is, and put Salieri's name on it. Well, anyway, I'll tell you a little about it because it's quite interesting. It is in one act only. It begins with a 45 minutes intermission because it's such a short opera. And when the curtain rises, first you hear the overture, but when the tour is over, the curtain rises, of course. Otherwise you couldn't see a thing. And on the stage are two large trees. One is on this side and one is on the other side. And that indicates a small forest. Now the tenor comes in, he's supposed to meet his soprano, but she hasn't arrived yet, so he hides behind one of the trees in order to surprise her when she comes in a little later, which she does. And when she comes in a little later, which she does, she can't find him because he is hidden behind the tree. And she doesn't know that. Of course she knows it because she must have seen it during rehearsals. But she pretends. Either that or she's plain stupid. Well, she now hides behind the other tree, waiting for him, but he's there already, so this is a little mess. Now the chorus comes in, but nobody knows why except Mozart, and he's dead. Finally, her father shows up. He's very angry because he just wants to get out of the opera as fast as possible and go home. And he decides that she must die, and she sings her death aria, and that's the end of it. The curtain falls, but not hard enough. And I'll take you to the opera and play for you the overture. First you hear the conductor's footsteps when he enters the orchestra pit. As a matter of fact, I like to call it the orchestra ditch. That's a little more dignified, I think. Pit. First you hear the conductor's footsteps when he enters the orchestra pit, or ditch. He walks sideways because it's a very narrow ditch. And this is the overture. This was the first part of the overture. Now you're going to hear the second part, and that's exactly the same. Now this is a blip. The reason for that extra blip is that the fellow who does the blips started one measure too late. Now the curtain rises, and the tenor comes in from that side in a single file. And he goes behind the tree right away. Thank you, I'll tell him. He can't wait. He's anxious to see her. Now, the leading lady comes in. She's supposed to fill the part of the soprano. She not only fills it, she overflows it a little bit. She carries a lot of weight to the opera. Let's put it that way. She's about 4.5 feet tall, lying down. She comes in from that side in a single pile. And he goes behind the other tree and surrounds it completely. Well, while you were laughing, the chorus has been in and out, and now a baritone arrives. But he finds out that he's in the wrong opera. So he's fired. And now the father comes in, the Il Basso. Well, how low can a man get? Now she picks it up from there and sings her death aria. She dies by stabbing herself between the two big trees there on the stage. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play one of the waltzes that I'm trying to remember before. This is a very lovely one. You know, whenever I would announce them from the stages in Europe where I played concerts, the whole audience would go, "Bravo! Bravo!" Because Bravo played them much better than I do. Yes, he is Giuseppe Bravo, a great pianist, and he is a Portuguese. Oh yes, he and his wife are Portuguese, but you can't have one geese. Well, I told you it's your language. I'm just trying to use it. And they have 3 Portuguese rings. One of each. When you hear this, that is the introduction to the waltz. Then when you hear this, that is the main theme of the waltz. Then when you hear this, then there is definitely something wrong. because that's Chopin. I knew that one. I'll put it on. Here's a little Danish lullaby. My mother used to play it for me when I was a few years ago. And as a matter of fact, I never heard her playing it because I always fell asleep the moment she started it. But but I think it goes like this. Everything come to an end. You wouldn't believe it, would you? But this is it. This is what we have to offer. Some laughs and smiles, and coughs and hiccups. But when once in a while a handkerchief comes out to wipe away a tear from laughter, that is my reward. The rest goes to the government. Perhaps we shall meet again sometime. Maybe next time in your house. Maybe in your dining room. Maybe in your living room. Wherever your TV set is located. That's right. I wish to thank my parents for having made this evening possible. And my children for having made it necessary. I have 5 children, by the way. Not by the way, I have 5 children. And that stupid page turner with the red tie happens to be one of them. And there are 4 more like that. Oh, please. When you drive tonight, please drive extremely carefully. Extremely carefully. Because I walk in my sleep. If you could stop that racket for a second. On behalf of everybody involved in this evening's performance, from the management and from everybody backstage and in front of the stage, and for all the artists who have joined me here on stage, I wish to thank you profoundly for the courtesy and the honor you have bestowed upon us by rising to the occasion. I thought you were on your way out. But in retaliation for your keeping me overtime, I am going to do an encore. If I had known this, we could have started with it and... Well, anyway. I'm going to do a routine now. The ones of you who have heard it must have cost a fortune to build this hall. For 15 cents more, I could have gone all the way over there. waste beautiful flowers. Any flowers. We don't waste anything. It's as beautiful as an artificial one. But anyway, I'm going to do a routine now. The ones of you who have heard it before may enjoy hearing it again. And the ones of you who have not heard it before may enjoy hearing it again next time. I'm speaking of the phonetic punctuation. Well, I must compliment you on your endurance. However, had I known this, as I said before, we could have started with it and been home by now. But I certainly appreciate your enthusiasm, indeed. I invented phonetic punctuation many years ago. Punctuation. And it was in 1936 when I first found that people who speak together don't understand each other clearly. But when we read or write, we use punctuation marks in order to underline the meaning of our sentences. But we do not have that support when we speak. So why not integrate punctuation marks by giving them sounds into our speech? Then we can underline what we intend to convey to each other verbally. Yeah. Now, what the heck was all that now? Then, of course, that was right. I'll teach you how to use the system. A period sounds like this. A dash. An exclamation point is a vertical dash with a period underneath. The comma. Quotation or two commas. Or if you happen to be left-handed, question mark is a little difficult. And finally the colon, the two little dots. You may put them over each other, you may put them under each other, you can put them wherever you want to put them. That's it. I'm going to read a paragraph from a book I have here. The same book I read from before. My father inherited that, I told you that, from two of his cousins. They were twins. Identical, but they never knew which one of them was the identical one because they looked so much alike. My father told me, he was much older than I was, of course, because see, my father was born in 1847. He was 60 years old when I was born, so he was almost my grandfather. And he knew a lot of things that I didn't know, and I know it now. I wanted to show you a little thing. I have 7 grandchildren, and the youngest one, when she was the youngest one, which she isn't anymore because there are 2 more, but she's now almost the oldest one, because not necessarily yet, but she's in age, you know, it always changes. And this is a thing she did in school for me. I always show that to the audience. That's good. I did a notebook. I write notes in it. Cute? From the school. Yeah. Cost me $8,000. She was the one who came home. She was the one who came home from a beach party. She was this big. And she could hardly walk. And I said, were there many children there? Oh, yes, she said, many boys and girls. I said, were there more boys or more girls? And she said, she couldn't tell that because none of them had any clothes on. I have a short story right here in the beginning of the book. Page 9. Oh. Page 6. In the open window there suddenly came light. Beautiful Eleanor sat alone, dreaming of but one thing. 2 years had passed since she met Sir Henry. She could still remember the unhappy evening when her father had thrown him out. They had been sitting in the park, and Henry had said, "Darling." Is this the first time you have loved? And she had answered, "Yes." But it is so wonderful that I hope it shall not be the last. Suddenly she heard a well-known sound. It was he. In 2 strides he was near her, embraced, kissed, and caressed her. Henry! What is love? She asked. He answered, "Well, I couldn't live without." He asked, I'm sorry, left-handed, "Where have your thoughts been?" And he answered, "My baby." Suddenly he had gone. Oops. All she heard was the well-known sound of his departing horse.